What's going on, everybody? This is the Daily Fantasy Show brought to you by DFO. I am Josh. Adam is doing his work thing, so I'm riding solo today. When I first glanced at this 11 game slate last night, I really liked it. And now there's a whole bunch of backups starting, and I still like it, but it's not as good, but we'll hop into that. I'm playing cash for the first time in a year and a half. And I posted games in the lobby and they got auto scooped. But if you're interested in playing head to head, even if it's for free to get a look at my cash lineup to see my thought process, you can send me a challenge at JRH002. That's my name on DK. So let's hop right in. First game of the night, we have the New York Rangers traveling to Pittsburgh to face the Penguins. And some changes for the Rangers. Nash got moved up to line one with Zabatajan and Matt Zuccarello. Pavel Buchnevich got moved down to line four. AV, what a clown. But that's a story for another day. And for Pittsburgh, looks like the top line is going to be Crosby, Gensel, and Sheary. Try not to be a Rangers homer here, but Pittsburgh is one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and the top line for the Rangers, Zabatajan, Zook, and Nash are super cheap. Nash and Zook are both 4,800. They're probably going to garner some ownership in GPP, but I want some exposure there. And also, I don't. That's the only line that interests me for the Rangers. I don't want, their second, third, and fourth lines are all mixed up, so I don't want any of that. Looks like D'Angelo is also in playing with McDonough, and Shattenkirk's with Stahl, which is just a disaster. But I like Shattenkirk on the blue line just because he gets the power play time. If Tony D'Angelo is on the power play too, he could be worth a punt at 3,200. Brady Shea's also 3,200. You just got to look at Daily Faceoff to see who's on power play too. And I like those guys as punt D-men in GPPs. Cash, I would more lean towards Shattenkirk. On the Pittsburgh side, I like the top line, Gensel, Crosby, Sheary. The only problem is for me that I don't like about it is that Gensel's on power play 2, and he's 6,300, so he doesn't really correlate with Crosby on the special teams. If you want to pay it for it, fine. I mean, it's not something I'm going to do. I'd more use like a Crosby, Hornquist, Letang power play mini. That's because the Rangers are just awful defensively too, the way they have the pairs set up. And in net, looks like it's going to be Matt Murray, 7,700. He could be a fine GPP option, especially if the Penguins shut down the Rangers top line. But, I mean, they are really bad defensively. They have no depth in their bottom six. Cash, I'd definitely stay away from. Lundqvist is probable. I'd stay away from him even though he's cheap. All right, we'll move on to the second game of the slate. We got the Florida Panthers traveling to... No, excuse me. We have the Flyers traveling to... No, I'm all confused. No, it's the Florida Panthers traveling to Philly to face the Flyers. There we go. That's how it is. The goalies are Neuwirth versus Luongo. Looks like the lines are the same for the Flyers. Verbata got moved up to line one. Looks like Tippett's making his NHL debut on the third line. The top line for the Flyers went off on Saturday. If you didn't have them in GPP, you weren't having a high-end cash. And they're at home. I like them tonight again. Couturier, Giroux, and Voracek. They're still moderately priced. I mean, Couturier is up to 5,100. Giroux and Voracek are 6,100 apiece. I like that line. I also like the second line. I'm not a huge Fippola fan, so I'd maybe lean towards more of like a Simmons Ghost Mini if you're gonna go there. Uh, that's something I'd look for. I mean, and then you also have Radko Gudas at 3,100. I I think he's getting reduced minutes. They're using Ghost more in the prominent role, or Provorov, which is probably better for the Flyers. So I'd definitely go there. I mean, Ghost is only 5,100 compared to some of the top end D-men tonight. Carlson 6,700, Letang 6,600, I believe. So Ghost could be a good option there. I don't have much interest in the Flyers, or in the Panthers tonight. It's not that I don't like him. It's just more of it's a big slate, and I feel like there's better options. I mean, if you're going to single bullet somebody, I would probably use Vinny Trocheck. He's still only 6,000. He plays a ton of minutes. He's been very productive. I mean, if you want to pair him with a D-man, I mean, I'd go Ekblad or Yandel, as they're seeing the power play time. That's something, if you want to get a tad contrarian, you can do. In net, Luongo at 7,100 is a GPP flyer for me. If you're not using the Flyers, obviously. Neuwirth at 8,000. I mean, again, I'm not someone who spends up for goalies in tournaments. I just don't like doing it, and I'm probably not going to spend 8,000 for Neuwirth tonight. So move on to the third game of the night. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs traveling to Washington to face the Capitals. Some notes from this game is Holtby versus Anderson. Again, Mitch Marner got moved down to the fourth line, which is ridiculous. Connor Brown got moved up to the line with Bozak and JVR. I like that line. And if you can tell me that Connor Brown's going to stay on that line the whole game, I definitely have interest in that line. It does worry me that Marner is going to come out with his hair on fire, and by the middle of the second period, Marner is going to be back on that line. But if you want to risk it in GPP, that's fine. I mean, Connor Brown is a popular on the Leafs team, and he's only 4,100. Makes that line very cheap. I believe the total in this game is 6, so there's probably going to be pretty solid ownership on most of the lines. Obviously, the Matthews line is in play with Nylander, who's still moderately priced at 5,800. He's on there with Hyman, who's 4,800. I understand if you want to leave Hyman off and just go with Matthews, Nylander. If you want to use Hyman and you full stack that line, that full line as a whole is going to be very low owned from an ownership. Like, no one full stacks that line because they think Hyman's garbage, and maybe he is from a DFS standpoint, but he can get assists because Matthews is just ridiculous. As far as the Capitals, you have to check out the line matching article that AD put up to see who Kadri's going to be matched up with. I maybe want to avoid whoever that line is matching up with. I would assume it's probably the Ovechkin line. I admittedly didn't get a chance to read his article yet, but if that's the case, I want the Backstrom line with Oshie and Burakovsky. Burakovsky's still cheap at 4,400. On D, if you want to go there, Carlson's 5,700. I mean, that's kind of expensive. Someone I do really like tonight, who plays a lot of minutes, he's cheap, Dmitry Orlov, 3,400. He hasn't been very good to start the season, but he's cheap and he's been playing a ton of minutes and he gets some power play time, so he's worth the flyer in all formats really. As far as goalies in this game, if you want to take a flyer on Freddie Anderson 7,200, just because you think he's going to see 40, 45 shots, go ahead. GPP only. I mean, none of these goalies really interest me in cash. Hope he's 7,800. Doesn't really interest me, even though he's at home. So we'll move on to the next game. We got the Tampa Bay Lightning traveling to the armpit of the country, New Jersey, to face the Devils. The Lightning are on a back-to-back, and it looks like it's going to be Corey Schneider against probably Peter Budaj, since Vasi has started every game this season. The Devils mix up their lines a little bit. It looks like Nico Hischier is on line one with Hall and Stafford. Zacha is on with Bratton Hayes, which means Henrique is on with Palmieri and Marcus Johansson. I know AD was big on the second line tonight just because they're probably going to be matched up with the point line, and that line has been pretty bad defensively, so I do like playing Henrique, Palmieri, and Johansson tonight. They're a cheap line. Everyone's basically 5,000 or under, lets you get creative. With the rest of your lineup, you can do pretty much anything. And the Lightning are on our back-to-back starting Budaj, so I like that play. Also, Will Butcher, 8 assists in the first. He's just going bananas with assists. I mean, I think you got to play him if you're playing Devils you got to ride the hot streak wave. He's 3,900. I guess that's kind of game log warrioring it, but you got to do what you got to do because he's still cheap. Of course, Taylor Hall is always in play for me in any format, really. He's their best player, and it's not close. On the Tampa Bay side, a couple nuggets that were pointed out to me by a couple buddies. I think Slim Cliffy tweeted it out that Stamkos is shooting 4.5% on the season, and his career low is 12.7%. So he's going to start scoring. And that line is just ridiculous with Kucherov. I don't care that they're on a back-to-back. Kucherov and Stamkos together are just ridiculous. They're expensive. You're going to have to get creative when filling out the rest of your lineup. My son's vacuuming. And, I guess you can, whoever's on power play too, it doesn't really correlate, on the special teams. But I guess you could use Hedman at 6,100. Then you got to get really creative because that is over 20,000 for 3 players. But if you're going power play 2, Strawman 3,700, Sergachev is 3,300. That gives you a little salary relief there. Corey Schneider, 7,900. If he was cheaper, I definitely have a little bit of interest. 7,900. I guess you could play him. Lightning on a back-to-back on the road. That's something I like to target, but that top line scares me. Budaj, 7,300. First start of the season, I have no interest in him. Now we move on to one of the games that are a little bit trickier to put a finger on. The Vancouver Canucks travel to Ottawa to face the Senators. Looks like it's going to be Anderson against Nielsen in goal. The big story for the Senators, Erik Karlsson is back. For the Canucks, they mixed up all their lines. Looks like Granlund's with the Sedins, Brock Bosier's with Sven and Burmistrov, and Horvat is with Vanek and Gagne. And also Michael Del Zotto is moved up to the top pair, and he's also on power play 1. So Del Zotto I'm definitely going to have interest in tonight. It's so hard to nail down the Senators' lines, and it's burned me the past 2 games because they put up, 6 and 6 goals, something like that. They put 12 goals in the last 2 games. So if I'm going to go with the Senators, I want the Broussard line, but I want Hoffman. I mean, I think the best way to attack the Senators would be using their power play. Now Carlson's back. He's usually almost 8,000. He's 6,700, but he's coming off a foot injury that he suffered in the playoffs last year. So this is his first game back. I don't think you can expect him to play his normal 25, 28 minutes. I mean, I'm expecting him to play 18, 20 minutes probably, but he is the best defender in terms of, I mean, if you have the salary, put him in. I'd put him in with Broussard, Hoffman, Stone. You can stack the power play, just check the power play. Their even strength lines are a little hard to nail down. In terms of the the Canucks that they mix up the lines, I really don't have any interest in any of the lines from even strength standpoint. The only person that really interests me is Michael Del Zotto on the blue line because he's cheap. He's 3,500. He's 3,500. Also, Ben Hutton is 3,100. I think he sees power play 2-time. Gives you some salary relief down at the bottom there. Del Zotto, you can make a case for in cash. I go either way. Hutton's more of a GPP play. In goal, Craig Anderson, 8,300. That's expensive, but he's been very good. The Canucks have been very bad. They're on the road. They mix up their lines. I could see, Craig Anderson being in play in any format tonight. I'm not thrilled about spending 8,300 on a goalie just because it's personal preference, but he's definitely somebody that is in play tonight. Anders Nielsen, 6,800. No interest for me, not even as a flyer, GPP flyer. That's not something that interests me at all. There's other options within a couple $100 that are much better. So move on to the next game. It is the Colorado Avalanche traveling to Nashville to face the Predators. I would assume Pekka Rinne is starting. It just, they don't really announce it until warm-ups. The Predators, at least. Sorry, I scrolled down too far there. Colorado, it's Varlamov. All the lines are the same, I believe. I think Jost is back from injuries. He slots in a line 4, so that really doesn't have an impact on DFS. And Nemeth is skating with Tyson Barrie. In that game, the top line of the Predators, I'm definitely interested in Johansson, Arvidsson, and Forsberg. It's Tuesday, so it's Forsberg Tuesday. So definitely have interest there. Also, it looks like Girard might be a healthy scratch, which means Roman Yossi's back. Definitely have to pay attention to that. If he's back, I could see using him on the blue line. He's 6,000. He's a couple $100 cheaper than Subban. That top line is for Nashville is one of my top plays tonight. I mean, they're probably going to have some ownership, but I feel like there's other spots that are going to be a little bit higher. So that's definitely something I want to get some exposure to. Forsberg, I'm struggling. Philip Forsberg, any format really. He's been shooting the puck a lot. Something I want to get exposure to there. The Avs, looks like they're smashing back down to earth a little bit again. You want to use Duchesne and Yakupov as a GPP flyer. Okay, I mean, my interest is kind of waning with them on the road. They were terrible on the road last year. They're also terrible at home. I mean, they're just terrible anywhere. I kind of avoid the Avalanche tonight. If you want to use them as GPP flyer, fine. I mean, you want to use McKinnon in cash, I won't talk you off it. Net, if it's Rinne 7,700, I definitely want some Pekka Rinne 7,700. I mean, that's too cheap facing the Avs. He should be up over 8,000. Varlamov 7,200. If you're not using the Predators, I could see as a nice Leverage play, if Nashville is high owned, Varlamov has been very good to start the season. Definitely GPP only, though. Cash doesn't really interest me too much. So we'll move on to the next game, which is the Columbus Blue Jackets traveling to Winnipeg to face the Jets. Looks like it's going to be Steve Mason against Korpisalo. Kyle Connor got called up because Perreault got put on IR. He'll be skating on the second line with Little and Line, which is awesome because he's 3,400. He's extremely talented, and I want to play him in all formats. No Bob tonight, which is nice. Korpisalo, I think, is making his first start of the season, although I think he did come in one game. So Little is only 4,700, which is really cheap. Line A is a little bit expensive. It's 6,700, but Kyle Connor is only 3,400. So that line as a whole is pretty cheap, and they'll probably not really put too much of a heavy. Well, actually, they might even see the. You have to check AD's line matching article, but I still like Winnipeg 2 here. Obviously, no problem with Winnipeg 1, Scheifele, Ehlers, and Wheeler. They're expensive. Ehlers has been ridiculous. I like it as a GPP play because I don't know what to expect from Korpisalo. For Columbus, I love their top line tonight. Wenberg, 6,000. Panarin, 6,600. And Atkinson at 6,300. It's 18,900 to stack them. But Steve Mason's in goal. He hasn't been very good. Winnipeg is terrible defensively. That line sees power play one time together. Winnipeg's PK is terrible. So if you want to make it a four-man stack, Zach Werenski is definitely my preferred option there in any format, really. GPP cash, he's 5,500. I like him there. So Columbus 1 is definitely one of my top targets tonight. I definitely want some exposure to them. I feel like they're going to be a little bit lower owned too because they might get overlooked. So definitely want some Columbus 1. In terms of the goalies, I really don't have any interest in either Mason at 7,500, Korpisalo 7,500. Moving on to the next game, we got the Coyotes traveling to Dallas to face the Stars. Looks like it's going to be Ben Bishop against Aiden Hill. I don't know what an Aiden Hill is, but he's 6,500 on DraftKings. The top line for Dallas is still intact. Looks like Spezza, Yen, Mark, and Richie are back as line 2. For Arizona, looks like Tobias Reeder is on line 1 with Derek Stepan and Domi, and Keller got moved to line 2 with Christian Dvorak and Anthony Duclair. I kind of like those changes. Keller being on line 2 gives an insanely cheap line 2. I mean, I'm not too high on the Coyotes tonight. But, Dallas isn't very sound defensively, to say the least. So, I mean, if you really need a cheap line, that could be a spot to look at. Obviously, I believe the chalk's going to be Dallas 1 tonight. It's because if you're like me, you don't know who Aiden Hill is. Again, that's Sagan, Ben, and Radulov. If you want to use D-Man, make it a 4-man stack if you can afford it. Klingberg at 6,300. Or even Essa Lindell, 3,500. I can see GPP flyer. So this is the thing. So if they're going to be really high owned, like they were on a 14-game slate on Saturday, they were ridiculous. They were over 20%. If that's going to be the case again, I think the ultimate leverage play is actually playing a little bit of Aiden Hill in GPPs, which seems ridiculous, but he's probably the best leverage play on the slate. I mean, if you're making 20 lineups, I wouldn't recommend having more than like two or three. Maybe even one or two is too much. So maybe one or two lineups with Hill. I don't know anything about him. I honestly don't. But you can just leverage the field if he somehow pulls out a win. Because he's going to be extremely low owned. He's cheap, lets you do whatever you want, and go from there. Other players that interest me a little bit. OEL, 4,700, still too cheap. I mean, you got to play him if you're playing Coyotes at that price. As far as Ben Bishop, 8,200, I definitely can see that as a play. The Coyotes have been struggling. They haven't been very good offensively. You know, I still like taking a couple shots with the Coyotes because they're cheap in GPP, but if you're not using the Coyotes, definitely could see Ben Bishop in play in all formats. So moving on to the next game, we have the Carolina Hurricanes traveling to Edmonton to face the Oilers. This is the battle of the backups. We got Brossois facing Cam Ham Ward. Looks like the top line still Connor McDavid, Maroon, and Yamamoto. But the Carolina Hurricanes mixed up their lines. Looks like it's going to be Teravainen, Jordan Staal, and Justin Williams. Skinner is now with Rask and Ryan. And Aho, I forget how he pronounces it. Everyone pronounces it differently. Is with Lindholm and Neckes. So, Cam Ward starting. How much Connor McDavid is too much? Connor McDavid's at home. He's 8,000. He's cheaper than Crosby. Cam Ward is terrible. So go upstairs. I'll be up in a minute. Go ahead. So I want all the top line. I like the top line tonight. McDavid, Maroon is only 5,100, and Yamamoto is only 4,900. So it is 18,000 to stack the line, which is cheaper than a good amount of top lines tonight. McDavid as a one-off is going to be chalky, but I feel like that line as a whole will be a little bit lower owned, just because people don't full stack that line. Either they don't like Maroon or they want to go somewhere different than Yamamoto. But he played good last game on the top line. They were buzzing. He had 6 shots on goal. He had an assist. They put a ton of shots on that. They just couldn't score. But if you're going to go there, I mean, you want to make it a full 4-man stack. Oscar Klefbom, 5,300 would be the play for me. In terms of Carolina, I don't know that with the line changes that I really want to full stack any of these lines. I mean, if you want a one-off Skinner, that's something you can do. It's a little difficult. Because it looks like Rask and Ryan are both centers on DK. So, I mean, positioning is a little annoying. I just don't like the way they mix up their lines. I mean, if you want to use the Skinner line, that's fine. Skinner, Rask, Ryan, it's cheap. It's 2 centers. It's a way to differentiate. And, Brossois isn't very good. So that's somewhere you can go. Really don't have too much of interest. Anyone on the blue line? Justin Falk, 5,200. I think there's better ways to spend 5,200 tonight. Noah Hannafin's up to 4,400. I mean, I think he would be my preferred play for stacking the Hurricanes. In terms of goalies, I have no interest in either. Cam Ward, 7,100. No, thank you. Brossois, 7,600. I have no interest. If you want to use them a GPP flyer, I mean, anyone could be a good GPP play if they, have a shutout, but I would bet against that there. Moving to the second to last game of the night, we have the Buffalo Sabres traveling to Vegas to face the Golden Knights. I would assume it's going to be Subban again against Robin Lehner. Looks like Reinhart got moved up to the second line with O'Reilly and Okposo, so I like that line. I also, of course, like the Eichel line with Pominville. Um, they would be my preferred play, the Eichel line. Although I don't mind either line tonight because, even though Subban only gave up one goal to the Bruins at the end of the game, I still don't think he's very good. And Ristolainen's only 5,000. I think you got to go back there. I mean, he's been struggling. But, he has the potential, to have like 2 assists, a goal, 4 shots on goal. So if you're stacking, Buffalo, I think you got to go there on D. Okay, give me 1 second, okay? In net, I have no interest in Subban at 7,700, just for the reasons I mentioned before. Robin Lehner is interesting play to me at 7,300. I think facing the goalies facing the Knights are going to be a popular play, but maybe not tonight because Lehner hasn't been very good, mainly because Buffalo gives up a ton of high danger scoring chances. But other than the Neal line, I mean, I guess you can make a case for Shippy, but he only played 10 minutes. What's his name? He's on there with what's his name? Alex Tuch. He moved up to 3,500, but he only played 10, 11 minutes too. So I feel like Leonard is a nice GPP play tonight. Also, you can make a case for him in cash. I think stacking or using the goalie against Vegas is a good play in cash. Again, if you're not using Leonard, I feel like the top line or the Neal line would be a decent play for Vegas, but the other guys don't really play too many even strength minutes, so that's where I go for there. Moving to the last game of the night, we have the Montreal Canadiens traveling to San Jose to face the Sharks. Looks like it's going to be Carey Price, and I would assume Martin Jones. The Sharks have not been very good, but neither has Carey Price. And it's the last game of the night on a fairly big slate, so it's probably going to be a lower-owned game. Burns is down to 7,500. I say down to 7,500. He's usually like 8,300. Again, I'm not going to force him into my lineup as, the Sharks have been struggling. I mean, if you get to the end of your lineup and you have 7,500, I could see putting Burns in. I prefer Let's Hang tonight probably to Burns, but again, that will burn me. That's burned me before. Little dude is crying. He'll be all right. He's tough. No interest in Joe Thornton. I don't know why people keep playing him. I think he had 2 goals on a goalie last season. I don't know how his knee's responding, so he's 38. Maybe he's just, the goose is cooked there. If you're going to go there, I'd use Pavelski. He's cheap at 60. He's cheaper compared to what he normally is at 6,400. You can do like a Pavelski Burns mini, or you can do like a Logan Couture Pavelski Burns power play stack. I think that's where I would go there if I'm not using Carey Price. Canadiens, Drouin, Pacioretty. I like it. I mean, Drouin's 5,900, Patch is 6,400. I think they're going to be low on tonight. Be a nice contrarian option. On the blue line there, probably go Shea Weber, 5,600. He's been underwhelming to start the season, but I think maybe this game might be a little loose out in San Jose because both teams have been struggling. They're both desperate, to get a W. In terms of goalies, again, I don't think Martin Jones is a very good goalie, so 8,200 to spend. No, thank you. Carey Price, 7,400. I don't believe that he's the best goalie in the league anymore. he's shown the ability to carry the Canadians like he did a few years ago. Maybe he has injury issues, or the Montreal blue line is just awful. Maybe that's playing into it. But at 7,400, I definitely want some exposure because the Sharks have been bad. They haven't been scoring many goals. And how many times can you get Carey Price at 7,400? I know he's on the road. I know it's on the West Coast, but I still want some exposure there. So let's recap. Favorite GPP stacks. I'm just going to go and order the games. This isn't any order of preference. New York Rangers 1 I like. Pittsburgh 1 I also like, but I'd be a little weary of Gensel just because he's not on the top power play. Philadelphia 1, almost Washington 1 and 2, any of the top 3 lines in Toronto. NJ 2, Tampa Bay 1, Ottawa power play stack, Nashville 1, Columbus 1, definitely one of my favorites tonight. Winnipeg 2 with Connor, it's cheap, it gives you options. Dallas 1, they're going to be really chalky, but again, Aiden Hill's in net. If you need a cheap line, either of the top 2 lines in Arizona could be a nice little contrarian play. Edmonton 1, Buffalo 1 or 2, and Montreal 1. Goalies, Craig Anderson, if you want to spend up to 8,300, I think is in play. Ben Bishop is in play as well at 8,200. I'm going to avoid Jones and Neuwirth. They don't really interest me. Schneider at 7,900 is kind of too expensive for me to spend up there. Matt Murray, Rangers have showed they're struggling to score, and after their top line, it's pretty brutal. 7,700 could be an interesting play. Pecorine definitely interests me as well at 7,700. Who else? Carey Price, 7,400 for sure is in play. Leonard, 7,300. Freddie Anderson could be a nice flyer at 7,200, as could Lundqvist. Neither interests me a great amount. Cam Ward, no thank you. Nielsen, no thank you. I think that, and then Aiden Hill, 6,500. That's like the ultimate leverage play in GPPs. I don't know. I wouldn't have too much exposure, but if you want to get, a little funky and have a high leverage play, you can throw him in there. So make sure to check out Daily Faceoff. We have our premium projections. We have a lineup optimizer, one for cash, one for GPP. We also have a premium chat, which I'll be in from 5:45 to 6:45, taking all your questions. Again, if you are playing cash tonight and you want to see my cash lineup, you can challenge me for free. If you want to challenge me for a couple bucks or whatever amount you got ahead, JRH002. I will have a video up sometime this week using the optimizer for cash lineups and GPP. I think I'll just combine them. Again, I also have a couple articles out this week. Probably a strategy article going over the ways to stack in GPPs, and I probably have a GPP stacks article out as well. So make sure to check that out. Check out Daily Faceoff, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Later.